In the blood-soaked battlefields of World War II, where millions fought and died, one name struck fear into the hearts of Nazi soldiers. She was not a general. She was not a tank commander. She was a 25-year-old woman with a rifle. Her name was Lyudmila Pavlichenko, and she would become the deadliest female sniper in history, with 309 confirmed kills. This is her story. Born on July 12, 1916 in Bila Tserkva, Ukraine, Lyudmila Mikhailovna Pavlichenko grew up in a world on the brink of revolution. Her family moved to Kiev when she was young, where her father worked in a factory and her mother was a teacher. From an early age, Lyudmila showed an independent spirit that would define her entire life. As a child in post-revolutionary Soviet Ukraine, Lyudmila was encouraged to pursue education and athletics. She was an ambitious student who excelled in her studies. But she was also drawn to something unusual for a young woman of her time: shooting. At age 14, Lyudmila joined a local shooting club. While other girls her age were focused on traditional feminine pursuits, she spent hours at the range, developing an extraordinary talent. With a rifle, her instructors noticed immediately that she had a natural gift: steady hands, sharp eyes, and an uncanny ability to remain calm under pressure. By 1937, Lyudmila had enrolled at Kiev University to study history. She was determined to become a scholar, a teacher like her mother. But she never abandoned her passion for shooting. She continued to train, joining the Osławiakim shooting club, where she earned a marksmanship badge and became one of the organization's top shooters. She married young, had a son named Rostislav, and seemed destined for a quiet, academic life. But Lyudmila was never content with quiet. She competed in shooting competitions, consistently outperforming men who underestimated her. Each time someone doubted her abilities because she was a woman, she let her rifle do the talking. On June 22, 1941, everything changed. Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's massive invasion of the Soviet Union, has shattered the morning silence. 4 million Axis troops poured across the border. The Nazi war machine, which had conquered most of Europe, now set its sights on destroying the Soviet Union. Within days, Kiev was under threat. The university closed. Normal life ceased to exist. As bombs fell and refugees fled, 24-year-old Lyudmila Pavlichenko made a decision that would change her life forever. While her professors urged her to evacuate, she walked to the nearest recruitment office and volunteered for the Red Army. The recruiters looked at this young woman with her university education and tried to assign her to nursing duties. "I'm a shooter," she told them firmly. "I've been training for years. I'm not going to be a nurse." She showed them her marksmanship certificates. Still, they hesitated. A woman sniper? It was nearly unheard of. Finally, they gave her a rifle and told her to prove herself. Lyudmila was assigned to the 25th Rifle Division as a sniper. She was issued a Mosin Nagant rifle with a PE scope and sent to defend Odessa, the major port city on the Black Sea. The male soldiers around her were skeptical. Many made jokes. A woman, sniper. She would panic at the first sign of danger. But on her very first day in combat, Lyudmila spotted 2 Romanian soldiers advancing on Soviet positions. They were part of the Axis forces supporting the German invasion. She took her position, controlled her breathing, and squeezed the trigger. The first soldier fell, then the second. 2 shots and 2 kills. It took her a moment to process what she had done. She had just taken 2 human lives. "After the first one, I felt sick," she would later recall, "but I knew that if I didn't kill them, they would kill my comrades. That's when I understood this was war, not sport shooting." From that moment, she never hesitated again. The jokes from her male comrades stopped immediately. They had witnessed something extraordinary. This quiet university student was a natural killer. The siege of Odessa lasted 73 brutal days from August to October 1941. The city was surrounded by Romanian and German forces, and the defenders were heavily outnumbered. Conditions were hellish. Constant artillery bombardments, limited supplies, the smell of death everywhere. And in this nightmare, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was thriving. She would spend entire days in carefully concealed positions, sometimes buried in rubble, sometimes hidden in destroyed buildings, waiting for targets. Patience was everything. A sniper might wait 10 hours for a single shot. The heat was unbearable. Insects crawled over her, but she never moved, never gave away her position. Her tally grew rapidly. 10 kills, then 20, then 50. German commanders began to realize they had a serious problem. Experienced soldiers were dying from single, precise shots. They started to hear rumors of a female Soviet sniper. Some thought it was propaganda. Others, who had lost men to her rifle, knew it was terrifyingly real. By the time Soviet forces evacuated Odessa on October 16, 1941, Lyudmila had recorded 187 confirmed kills. She had become one of the most effective snipers in the entire Red Army, and the siege had only just begun. After evacuating Odessa, Lyudmila was sent to an even more critical battlefield, Sevastopol. This fortress city on the Crimean Peninsula was the last Soviet stronghold in the region, and the Germans were determined to take it. What followed was one of the longest and bloodiest sieges of World War II, lasting 250 days. The fighting at Sevastopol was apocalyptic. The Germans unleashed everything they had: massive siege guns, dive bombers, flamethrowers, and waves of infantry. The Soviet defenders fought from underground bunkers and tunnels, emerging to fight and then retreating back into the earth. It was here that Lyudmila Pavlichenko would cement her legend. She continued her deadly work, now targeting not just ordinary soldiers but German officers and other snipers. Counter-sniper warfare was the most dangerous game. Both sides deployed their best marksmen to hunt each other. One mistake, one moment of carelessness, and you were dead. Lyudmila engaged in several famous sniper duels. One German sniper had killed many Soviet soldiers before Pavlichenko was assigned to eliminate him. For days they hunted each other, each trying to outwit the other. Finally, after a patient stalk lasting hours, she spotted the glint of his scope. One shot ended the duel. She had eliminated one of Germany's top snipers. War takes everything, and Lyudmila was not spared personal tragedy. At Sevastopol, she fought alongside another sniper, Alexei Kitsenko. They became close friends and eventually romantic partners. In the chaos of war, they found moments of humanity together. But in May 1942, during a German assault, Alexei was killed by a mortar round right in front of her. Lyudmila held him as he died. The loss devastated her. In her grief and rage, she went on what can only be described as a killing spree, eliminating German soldiers with cold efficiency. "He was my closest friend," she later said. "After his death, nothing could stop me." By June 1942, Lyudmila Pavlichenko had achieved 309 confirmed kills, making her one of the most successful snipers in military history. But her war was about to end. During a German mortar attack, shrapnel tore through her position. She was badly wounded, with injuries to her face and body. Soviet command made a decision. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was too valuable to lose. She had become a symbol of Soviet resistance, and her story was being used for propaganda purposes. She was evacuated by submarine from Sevastopol, one of the last to escape before the city finally fell to the Germans on July 4th, 1942. Her combat days were over, but her mission was just beginning. The Soviet government had a new assignment for their famous sniper. She would go to America and rally support for opening a second front in Europe. In August 1942, at just 25 years old, Lyudmila Pavlichenko became the first Soviet citizen to be received at the White House. She was part of a Soviet delegation sent to strengthen the alliance with the United States and Britain. The young sniper, still recovering from her wounds, was about to face a different kind of battlefield: American public opinion. She arrived in Washington, D.C., wearing her Soviet military uniform with her medals prominently displayed. American newspapers were fascinated by her. Here was a young, attractive woman who had killed 309 enemy soldiers. How should they react? Many reporters focused on superficial details: her appearance, her clothing, whether she wore makeup. At press conferences, male journalists asked insulting questions. "Do you wear lipstick on the front line? Isn't your uniform ugly? Don't you think killing people isn't feminine?" Lyudmila's patience wore thin. This was not the respect she had earned on the battlefield. But one American understood her: First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. The two women met at the White House and immediately connected. Eleanor was impressed by Lyudmila's strength and intelligence. She invited the young sniper to stay at the White House as her personal guest, an extraordinary honor. Eleanor and Lyudmila toured the country together, speaking at rallies and factories. They formed a genuine friendship that would last for years. In Eleanor, Lyudmila found someone who treated her as an equal, not as a curiosity. The First Lady was deeply moved by the sacrifices Soviet women were making in the war. "She visited my home in Hyde Park," Eleanor later wrote. "I grew to admire this woman enormously. She had been through horrors that I could barely imagine, yet she remained strong and purposeful." Lyudmila's most famous moment in America came at a rally in Chicago. She was tired of superficial questions about her appearance. She was tired of being treated like a novelty. So when she took the stage before a crowd of thousands, she delivered a speech that stunned her audience. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice steady and strong, "I am 25 years old, and I have killed 309 fascist occupants by now. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?" The crowd erupted. Here was a young woman who had seen more combat than almost any American soldier, and she was calling them out. She continued, "I am glad to see you, my dear friends, but I must also tell you that we are not asking for your pity. We are asking for your help." Her message was clear. The Soviet Union was bleeding to death, fighting the Nazis. Every day of delay in opening a second front in Western Europe meant more Soviet deaths. American audiences were electrified. This was not the shy, decorative woman they expected. This was a warrior, demanding action. Lyudmila's American tour was a massive success. She spoke at dozens of rallies, met with labor unions, and appeared on radio programs. The folk singer Woody Guthrie was so inspired by her that he wrote a song called Miss Pavlichenko, celebrating her achievements. The lyrics were direct: "In the mountains and canyons quiet as the deer, down in the forest knowing no fear, Miss Pavlichenko's well known to fame, Russia's your country, fighting's your game." American public opinion began to shift. The pressure for a second front increased. While Lyudmila alone didn't cause the D-Day invasion, her tour contributed to the growing demand that America do more to help its Soviet allies. After her tour of America and Britain, Lyudmila returned to the Soviet Union in late 1942. She wanted to return to combat, to rejoin her comrades at the front. But Soviet authorities had other plans. She was too valuable as a symbol and too recognizable to risk. Instead, she was assigned to train other snipers. She spent the rest of the war teaching the next generation of Soviet snipers her techniques: patience, camouflage, breath control, the psychological warfare of hunting another sniper. Many of her students would go on to become successful snipers themselves, carrying her lessons into battle. For Lyudmila, it was frustrating. She was a warrior, and warriors belonged on the front line. But she understood that her contribution was still vital. Each student she trained could carry on the fight against the fascists. In 1943, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union, the highest honor her country could bestow. The young woman who had once been told to become a nurse was now one of the most decorated soldiers in the Red Army. She received the Order of Lenin twice and numerous other medals for her service. But no amount of medals could replace what she had lost. So many friends killed. Her lover Alexei dead at Sevastopol. The innocence of her youth shattered by the reality of war. She had done what her country asked, but the price had been enormous. When the war finally ended in May 1945, Lyudmila was 28 years old. She had spent 3 years in combat and 2 years training others. She had seen the worst that humanity could offer and had responded with extraordinary courage. Now she had to figure out how to live in peacetime. After the war, Lyudmila returned to Kiev University to complete her studies. She earned her master's degree in history, the dream she had put on hold when the Nazis invaded. She became a historian, teaching and researching Soviet military history. She also became involved in the Soviet Committee of the Veterans of War, working to preserve the memory of those who had fought and died. She attended commemorations, gave speeches, and met with veterans. She never forgot the comrades she had lost. Lyudmila struggled with what we now recognize as PTSD. The nightmares never fully went away. The memories of friends dying, the faces of the men she had killed, the sounds of artillery and gunfire. War had marked her forever. But she channeled that pain into ensuring the world never forgot what had happened. She maintained her friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt, exchanging letters for years. In 1957, Eleanor invited Lyudmila back to America for a visit. The two women toured the country again, this time as a celebration of their friendship rather than a wartime necessity. It was a healing journey for both of them. Lyudmila Pavlichenko lived a quiet life in Moscow in her later years. She married again and focused on her historical research and veteran advocacy work. She wrote her memoirs, ensuring that future generations would understand what the war had been like. She remained proud of her service but never glorified war. "I'm proud of what I did," she once said, "but I am not proud that I had to do it. War is not glorious. War is hell. I hope future generations never have to experience what we experienced." On October 10, 1974, Lyudmila Pavlichenko died in Moscow at the age of 58. She was buried in Novodevichy Cemetery, where many of the Soviet Union's heroes are laid to rest. Thousands attended her funeral, including veterans who had fought alongside her and students she had trained. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's legacy extends far beyond her 309 confirmed kills. She shattered stereotypes about what women could achieve in combat. In a male-dominated military, she proved that determination, skill, and courage have no gender. During World War II, approximately 2,000 Soviet women served as snipers, a higher number than any other country. Many were inspired by Pavlichenko's example. Women like Lyudmila Pavlichenko, Nina Lobkovskaya, and Rosa Shonina became legends in their own right, collectively killing thousands of enemy soldiers. The Soviet Union was unique in deploying women in direct combat roles on such a large scale. While other nations had women in auxiliary positions, the Soviets put women on the front lines as snipers, pilots, machine gunners, and tank drivers. This was partly ideological. Soviet communism emphasized gender equality, and partly practical. They needed every able-bodied person to fight. Today, Pavlichenko is remembered in Russia and Ukraine as a national hero. Statues have been erected in her honor. Streets and schools bear her name. Her story has been told in books, films, and documentaries. In 2015, the Russian government issued a postage stamp commemorating her achievements. Her impact on military thinking about women in combat continues to this day. When modern militaries debate whether women should serve in combat roles, Lyudmila Pavlichenko's record stands as definitive proof that they can and do excel in the most demanding military positions. What made Lyudmila Pavlichenko so exceptional? It wasn't just her marksmanship, though that was extraordinary. It was her combination of physical skill, mental toughness, and unwavering determination. In a war that killed over 27 million Soviet citizens, she survived and thrived through intelligence, discipline, and an iron will. She faced three enemies: the Nazi invaders, the brutal conditions of combat, and the prejudice of a world that didn't believe women could be warriors. She defeated all three. Her story reminds us that heroism comes in unexpected forms. The university student who loved history became a battlefield legend. The young woman dismissed by male soldiers became the most effective sniper in her unit. The person underestimated by American journalists became one of the most powerful advocates for the Allied cause. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's life was defined by World War II, but her legacy transcends that conflict. She represents the strength of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. She stands as a symbol of what people can achieve when they refuse to accept limitations others try to impose on them. 309 confirmed kills. Hero of the Soviet Union. Teacher, historian, friend, mother. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was all of these things. But perhaps most importantly, she was a woman who, when her country needed her most, answered the call and became a legend. Her rifle is silent now, but her story continues to inspire. And that, perhaps, is the greatest victory of all.